Hello everyone and welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. It's Morgana here and today I'm going to be painting this simple classic wetland scene for you using watercolour. My inspiration for this painting today was the beautiful Cuckmere Haven, a gorgeous coastal nature reserve in the UK. I'll be working from my own photograph, which you are very welcome to use as a reference as well. Simply pause the video and take a screenshot now to do so. I'm beginning today with a piece of cold pressed watercolour paper, size 1/4 imperial. I've got it taped onto my board and laying flat. The colours I'll be using for this painting are all on screen at the moment. I'll pop a full equipment list into the video description as well, as per usual. To begin this painting, I'm wetting the top half of the paper with clean water before sweeping in a little bit of raw sienna from the left hand side here. This is just going to add a slight sunlit glow into the sky. For the main sky colour, I'm using a mix of ultramarine blue mixed with a little bit of Payne's grey and plenty of water to sort of dilute down these very strong colours and turn them into this really nice sort of pale, misty, almost wistful kind of wash. I'm applying this paint here using my large 2-inch flat brush, which I'm then bringing down. You can see I'm doing a bit of dry brushing here over this lower half of the paper, and this is just going to give us a little bit of water in the lower half. We can put the land in later, but it's always nice to get a bit of dry brush done first, just because that gives us that nice sparkle across the water. Don't forget to clean up any excess water as you go from the masking tape around the paper as well. That's just going to help you avoid any unfortunate cauliflowers or runbacks getting into your nice clean wash. And speaking of a nice clean wash, that is all I'm going to do for the sky in this painting. I want it to be really simple, just a faint hint of blue and a little bit of a golden glow which is going to appear behind the cliff that I'm planning to put in later. So for now, I'm just beginning to add in a little bit of darker colour along the horizon line. The flat brush is really useful for getting those long thin lines in nice and quickly, as you can see. And here I'm using a small round brush to add in some very tiny distant trees into this background line here. For this I'm using a little bit of perylene green mixed with a touch of yellow ochre. For the sweep of distant cliff on the left side, I'm simply using my 19mm flat brush. I did try to get it done all in one stroke, but ran out of paint towards the end. So you'll see here, I just go over it very simply, again using perylene green mixed with some yellow ochre. And here below the cliff, I'm just going to carry on adding some darker distant trees into the horizon line using the size 4 round brush. Now to begin adding some midground and foreground land into the lower half of this painting, I'm going to be using a couple of different brushes, starting with this nice large 2-inch flat brush, which I already used for the sky. This is great for covering areas quickly, and the flat shape here really helps to create these flat plains of land which are going to be sticking up from the water in this wetland scene. The simplest way I've found to do this is by holding the flat brush horizontally and just sweeping the tips of it across the lower part of the paper, and you can start organically building up layers of land in this part of the painting. You can see here that I'm switching now to the smaller flat brush. This just gives a little bit more control and of course a finer line. To begin adding richer colour into the foreground, I'm using a blend of sap green and cerulean green. I'm now showing you one of my favourite techniques, using the long sword liner brush and tapping the belly of it against the texture of the cold press paper, and it gives you this almost dry brush effect with the rich paint across the areas that you move the brush. It's a little awkward to start at first, but once you get the hang of it, it's actually a really fun process and can create some really beautiful loose marks on a painting. At this point, it is entirely up to you just how much land you put into your wetlands scene. I've gone for this approach of a smaller amount of land to a larger amount of that lovely pale grey-blue dry brush sparkle we've got for the water here today. But of course you could certainly put in sturdier bits of land and even a few sort of trees and bushes and shrubs as well. I've decided to go for some fairly basic reed detail to start with, using the sword liner brush. Once you're happy with these layers you've built up, it's time to leave everything to fully dry before putting in the fence. For the fence posts, I'm going to be using my flat brush again and a mixture of burnt umber and Payne's grey. This is a really nice simple technique to put in these straight lines without having to worry about keeping your hand steady and getting these wobbly gate posts. Simply tap the straight chisel edge of your flat brush upwards in the shape that you want your fence posts, leaving the edges and the tops a little bit ragged if, like me, you want these old posts to look like they've had a little bit of wear and tear. While the paint is still wet, I add an extra little line of Payne's grey down the left side of the posts using my sword liner, just because it's a really nice thin brush. This just gives an extra bit of shadow into these posts and just gives them that extra little bit of detail. Now it's time to paint some really simple reflections. So I just filled up my brush with the same colour that I used to paint the fence posts, and you can see I'm just using the really fine tip of the sword liner brush to create these long sort of wiggly broken lines leading down from the posts straight down vertically across this patch of water here. And you want this to be a broken line, you want it to look a little bit raggedy because you want to reflect the movement in the water here, which is really important in creating that illusion of water in the painting. Use the tip of a fine brush, or you can use a nice fine liner pen to add a very simple wire connecting these posts. Now, to make these posts even more a part of the landscape, I'm just going to paint some very simple grasses around the base of the fence post here, again just using the sword liner brush. But if you don't have one of these, then any thin liner type brush will do, or even a round brush with a good fine point. Now it's time to start building up some foliage along the rest of the painting. So trees, grasses, reeds, bushes, anything you like. I'm sticking with these fairly simple sort of upright spiky reeds and grasses, partly because they're my favourite things to create, and partly because I think it lends a nice simplicity to this scene. But by all means you can add in a few sort of twisted trees or shrubs or bushes, or even a nice large statuesque tree to become a focal point. I think the type of foliage you add in a painting such as this is entirely dependent on how you built up your land in this wetland section. So if you've got a nice sturdy bit of land that looks like it could support a tree, then by all means put a tree there. Now I'm going to be using my texture brush in this painting, partly just to build up a little bit of detail in this midground here, using it to lightly create some loose foliage with some perylene green mixed with some yellow ochre, but I'm also going to be using it to help me create some of the reflections in the water. You can see that by holding the brush really lightly and just dragging it down the paper in a soft sort of wavy line, it's really easy to create these simple reflections of these clumps of reeds here. You can of course do them individually, little wavy lines with a fine brush like a liner brush, wiggling down into these pools of water here, but this is just a really fun little technique and speeds the whole process up with you, so I just wanted to share this with you all today. After adding a handful more simple reeds into the background, I decided that the finishing touch for this painting was going to be a handful of birds flying into that big old blue sky. I'm using the sword liner for this and a little bit of Payne's Grey, but all you need is a detail brush or any brush with a small enough point to get these delicate little bird shapes onto the painting. Originally I was planning to do a whole flock of geese, but managed to limit myself to painting just these three. So here we are with the finished painting. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. I do love to paint these wetland scenes. I find them incredibly tranquil and peaceful and just a really nice respite from sometimes the busyness of everyday life. If you enjoyed this painting, then I've got plenty more that are similar, both on this YouTube channel and on my Patreon page, which you can find by clicking on the link below. A huge thank you to those of you who have already signed up for my page. A very warm welcome to you all, and I look forward to seeing you all there in the very near future. But for now, that's all from me today, so I wish you a wonderful rest of the day and very happy painting.